today I wanted to add two more types of ethical approaches to our little bag here. So we'll have how the Catholic Church understands it in the three fonts: proportionalism, consequentialism, and now deontology and situational ethics. So I will then bring up that scenario, fictional scenario of the young girl going to field hockey, and then we also will look at the one I had on slide of the young lady who does not do well at taking tests and looks over the shoulder of Jesse. All right? So let's start with deontology. What's that? Yeah, we'll talk about him again.
I thought we only take 2 days.
Well, we couldn't finish this yesterday. Plus, next week, you guys are going to get away with hardly just 1 day. So, okay, so this ethic, it follows what Immanuel Kant says is the categorical imperative. Immanuel Kant really wanted to develop an ethics that was based on reason, not on God, okay? So so he tried to develop morals just based on reason. And he did it by developing what he calls the categorical imperative. Categorical means, always, So it's not hypothetical, it's categorical. It includes all categories. And also, it's an imperative, so it's a command. You will do this, all right? So if you can't will something for everybody, then you can't will it for yourself. So you're always looking in terms of, what am I doing? Can everybody do this? Would it be good? If the answer is no, then you cannot do it, all right? So it aims at discovering a rule that is true, and it doesn't really concern desires or circumstances. Now, this really just focuses on the motive to do the right thing. If you want an example, it would be being in the Army. Okay? Your commanding officer gives you an order, you must follow it. Why must I follow it? Because if I can will that I don't follow my commanding officer's orders, then I'd have to will that everybody can't follow my commanding officer's orders, and that would obviously be havoc. So I have to follow his orders. All right? So deontology, and literally in the Greek, it's duty-based, right? This is a duty-based ethical system. So a soldier would say, what is my duty? My duty is to follow the orders of my commanding officer. And that's all he really will bring to bear on his actions. All right? So you have to discover, what is this duty that we have as people? What is your duty as a student? What is my duty as a teacher? What is your duty as a parent? What is your duty as a child? And then those things will be the driving force behind your ethical system. So the method they will use, and it's redundant, in order for something to be morally licit, to be morally good, then your duty has to be tested by asking, can this universally be held? So in the fictional scenario of a young girl who's a senior in high school and has a full ride to a good school on a scholarship because she played field hockey so well, and her future intention is to become a doctor working in underprivileged neighborhoods, could she have an abortion to keep that scholarship? According to deontology, no. You cannot will that you would kill a child for everybody. So if I can't universally apply this, then I myself cannot apply it to my case. All right? So it's very strict. And again, there's variations on this. I'm giving you just one little flavor of it.
Pampers. You said pampers.
Okay. The criticisms. This really doesn't talk about being a good person. All right? It's not an ethic system that's going to lead you to that. So we're not talking about building virtuous habits within ourselves. We're simply asking, in these cases, what do we do? Okay, what is the moral thing to do? So that's one criticism, although it may not be the greatest. The second one may sound a little confusing, but I'll try to explain it. The priority really is on what is right, not what is good. Okay? So, the classic example here is if you were a Christian family during World War II in Germany, and you were hiding a Jewish family in your basement, if you were hiding a Jewish family in your basement, and then all of a sudden German officers came banging on the door and said, do you have any... Okay, he's good. Do you have any Jews living in this house? Deontology will have to say yes, because lying is not to lie is a categorical imperative. All right? Now, how would we resolve this? We would determine, do they have proper access to that information? So, is me withholding that information my way of defending myself and the people in my house? And here's a clear example for that. Let's say that your uncle was coming to me for a job, and I had some suspicions. So I ask you, because you know him well, does your uncle have responsibility issues, and is he an alcoholic? Okay, duty-based ethics would say you need to tell him the truth. And if you say that, yes, he has issues with responsibility and he's an alcoholic, well, then I'm not hiring him. But that's what duty-based ethics would say. We would say, you have no right to that information, and if I need to deceive you to protect that right, then I will. Okay? The bottom one is also an issue. What do you do with conflicting duties? Okay? In other words, the young girl who's going to have an abortion, somebody might bring up, but doesn't she have a duty to use her skills to help a lot of people? I mean, doesn't that get weighed into this situation? You're saying that she has a duty to not kill an unborn child, but she also has a duty to use her skills to help a multitude of people. I mean, let's face it, she can wind up helping thousands. Okay, so how do you resolve that? Well, it's a little difficult, all right? It gets a little hard in this ethical system to determine which one has a priority as a duty, all right? So it's just one more of the issues surrounding it. Okay, any questions on deontology? Situational ethics. Okay, so the thing is this. This is probably how most modern people work through an ethical system to form a judgment. But you just don't know it. And what's odd about it is you're influenced by this gentleman's understanding of ethics, and you probably never heard of him before. So what you find, because beyond human sexuality, my concentration, if you want to call it that, would be cultural studies. Okay, like, how do we develop ourselves within our culture? And if we were in a time machine and we would go to various periods throughout, the timeline, just by asking some questions and their response ethically to it, we could probably figure out what period we live in. So if you were somebody that were an advocate of, well, what I want to do is the loving thing. I'm interested in this person's well-being. I know it's not always the right thing to do, but nonetheless, we're interested in this person's well-being. It's likely we could probably conclude that, you're a person of the late 20th century, okay? And you don't know that at the time, right? Like I was kidding the other classes. When I grew up, like in the 70s and 80s, nobody told us we were dressing like we were in the 70s and the 80s. That's just how we dressed. We thought it was absolutely normal. Now, you guys, when you're not in school in uniforms, however you dress at home, you think it's just absolutely normal. You don't think there's anything particular about it. But the reality is, in 30 years, your children are going to dress like you for Halloween. I mean, they're going to have decade days, right? Whatever they call it, the aughts, the teens, or whatever. So you think there's nothing peculiar about your dress because you're in the middle of it. But the reality is, 30, 40 years from now, it'll say, oh my God, that's how they dressed back in the early part of the 20th century, all right? So it's that with ethics, too. So this guy wrote a book, Situation Ethics, at the latter part of, like, the early 70s and such, right? It's motivated solely by love. So it does not sound good, right? If somebody says your ethics should be motivated by love, well, who would disagree with that? And we're going to take the particular circumstances of the situation to determine that. So on the surface, this sounds like this is the winner, right? Because it's taking in the circumstances and it's based on love. So the method that Joseph Fletcher, well, I didn't get there yet. Let's work it here. We're going to say that each situation is very unique, okay? So Stephanie's situation, if I'm trying to evaluate, say like through a test, I'll look at Stephanie's situation and I'll look at Angel's situation. And I want to take those into account when I'm doing grades, all right? It follows flexible guidelines rather than rigid rules, all right? So typically a rigid rule in a classroom is, I warn you that a test is coming around in 4 to 5 days. You're expected to study. You take the test, and what score you get is what score you get. That's the rule. You get what you get, okay? But you know what? Angel's having a bad week. And Angel had some stuff going on. I knew about it. I talked to him. So I know that, you know, ordinarily I wouldn't do it, but in this particular situation, I'm going to bump him up 15 points. So him and Stephanie get the same grade, okay? So that would be me looking at the situation and what is my interest in his well-being. My goal is to have a well-being for this individual, okay? Rather than rigid rules, correct? So the method then is for me to decide on an action. Will I simply cushion Angel's score 15 points? I'm going to follow general guidelines. General guidelines are is yes, I'm working off of test scores, but not the rigid principle as what you get is what you get. I'm not going to worry about the rigid principle because I'm more interested in achieving well-being on the part of Angel. Okay, that's how I work through this. Now, the criticisms. First of all, this is a consequentialist type ethics. It's just one that uses love to determine the consequence. So, I'm not looking at the motivation or even how. I'm just simply giving him 15 points. But I'm more interested in the end. He's going to be adjusted and satisfied because of his unique situation. That's what I want. The fact that I had to literally just give 15 points, so what? I didn't care how I got there. I'm interested in his well-being. So that's one of the problems. We're back to consequentialism in a certain sense. This one is very, very important. So if you guys, the only thing that's tied in with culture with me is love. So if you guys want to do a section on love and intimacy, you're right into my area. But if we're going to use love as the motivation here, exactly what does that mean? You know, everybody has different understandings of love, right? So what if I'm going to apply the principle of love to a situation, what is the principle? Okay? For instance, once you remove, and you'll learn this if we do love and intimacy, if you remove truth from love, all you have is a sentiment. It's what you feel it is, and it's what I feel it is. And we could all say that we should love each other, but me and you might be talking about two different things. You might be talking that I should be nice to you. I might be talking that you ought to be willing to do something for me. I mean, we may have two different versions of love, which is why, by the way, you know, and this last part, and then I'll come back to that. Since the ethical results are going to vary, in other words, in this particular situation between Stephanie and Angel, I'm going to give him the 20 points. But between, you know, say, Stephanie and Clem, I'm not. Okay? So what would that be? I mean, if you found out that I just gave one student 15 points and none of the other ones, what would you say? That's not, yeah, that's not fair.
If it was Clem, though?
Yeah. Okay, so here's the point. Here's the point. Young people, you guys always, and I don't know what it is with young people, you have the ability to ferret out an injustice. You know when adults are authentic or not. I think it's something you guys have, right? You know if an adult's authentic or not. So you see an injustice. So if you came to me and said, how in the heck did you give him 15 points and not her? But then in another situation, you didn't give any of them any points. Now, why would you be right in your assessment? Because the definition of an injustice is to apply two different standards to the same situation. But in this case, there's no other way to do it. I'm taking every situation differently. So if there are kids in this school that you feel are getting treated different than other kids, you notice that right away. And if you went down and wanted to argue about it, if the answer that came back to you was, they have circumstances that warrant it, that would not suffice for you, okay? So what happens with this is you're going to have a lot of injustices because people can never compare apples for apples. we did that for this person, but not for this person. And I didn't do it for those three, but I might do for that one next week. Why? Well, it's the circumstances, all right? So that's an issue. So let's go back and look at the young girl that's trying to get her scholarship. Again, the deontologists will say, you can't do it. You cannot kill somebody because you have to will that all people can kill an unborn child. Now, they might have a conflicting duty trying to figure out that they also have a duty to use their powers to help the community. This situation, though, they're going to look at it and they're going to say, well, what's in best interest of this young girl's well-being? Okay, well, it's not going to really be in her well-being if she winds up having this child and then may not be able to finish school, and then she'll never wind up being a doctor, and she probably will never wind up helping people that are underprivileged. So, yes, an abortion is wrong. We're going to say that, says the situational ethicist. But in these particular circumstances, it seems like it's okay. That's how they would conclude. Now, if we switched it around a little bit, let's take it so that the girl is not so much like a really nice person who wants to get a medical degree to help people. Let's say that it's an entitled young girl who really gets anything she wants, always. Her parents will already have enough money to send her to school, forget about the scholarship. And to be honest, she wants to become a doctor because of how privileged she'll be able to walk around with the letters in front of her name, and she'll look really, she can go to the country club and she'll feel important. Okay, now all of a sudden, the situation ethicist is going to look at that a little differently. Is this really for her well-being? So they might, in that scenario, they might say, the abortion's wrong. So do you see, it's like little different circumstances, but from the Roman Catholic position, we start out with what are they doing? They're having an abortion. That's murder to intrinsic evil. No circumstances, no intentions can make that right, even though we would say her intentions are very, very good. Okay? So any questions on this? I want to go back to the last scenario. So again, this is... Come on. Okay, so this is the girl Gloria, who's not a very good test taker, gets very nervous during the test-taking times, but yet she's very good at math. She's a first-generation college student. Her parents are quite proud of her. She's paving the way. They're kind of relying and hoping that she does well. She's in a pinch. She just blanks totally. All she needs to do is look over the shoulder of the guy in front of her, whom she has helped in the past, and if she just gets the answer, she'll then be able to work out the method, and she will be fine and get a good grade on the test. So once again, the proportionalist is going to weigh this out. The proportionalist is going to say, well, what are the goods here? Okay, well, the goods are here is that she'll vindicate her family. She'll maybe inspire younger siblings or cousins to go to college. She's going to get a good grade on the test, and she's going to pass. Okay, what are the poor parts? Or the bad parts? Well, she's going to have to cheat to do it. You done, dear?
Yeah.
Thank you. She's going to have to cheat to do it. It's going to cause a little disruption in the curve, but if you have 60 people in a classroom and just one person cheats, it's not going to throw it off too bad. So if they lay them all out on the scale, they're going to say there's more goods than bad. Okay, look over the shoulder and cheat. Consequentialist, not even going to really have to haggle with this one. So you're telling me this is all everything will turn out good if you cheat. Yes, so the consequences are all going to be good. Yes, then just cheat. Doesn't matter how you get there. The end, the goal justifies how you got there. The end justifies the means. So with them, do it. The deontologist is going to say, well, as a student, you have a duty to be honest in assessments, because if we don't have an integrity, in our assessments, then what is it that we're measuring? Okay, and if I ask if it's okay for one person to cheat, why isn't it okay for everyone to cheat? Which we have absolutely no integrity for the assessment. So no, your duty as a student is to be honest, and even though good may not come from it, you have to stick to it. The situational ethicist would probably say, this girl to go back, in shame, and who knows, she goes back and maybe her cousins that were really thinking this is for me, all of a sudden are thinking it's too hard, I'm not even going to try. So they never quite get out of that, idea. We have only high school graduates. And all she has to do is look over, and it's not really good to cheat, but in this particular situation, it seems like the factors are there. I think it's okay. The Roman Catholic would say, okay, what is she doing? She's cheating. Now that's not an intrinsic evil, but it's wrong. Okay? What's her intention? Her intention is to vindicate her parents and, you know, show how much she is appreciative of their love and support. Is that a good intention? It's a wonderful intention. What are the circumstances? Well, the poor girl's not a good test taker. She gets nervous. The guy in front of her does pretty good, even though she has to explain it to him in class. She's a freshman in college, you know, she comes from this family, so we go down the whole list. Are those circumstances good? Yes. The circumstances are good, the intention is good, but the object is bad. If not all three are good, then this is an illicit thing. So we line up with the deontologist on this, but you see we got to that conclusion through different means. They did it simply from duty. We did it, no, sorry. Yes, they got to that she was going against her duty. We said, no, she's doing something that is inherently wrong. It's wrong in itself, okay? So what I'll have you do next week is I will give you scenarios. And then I will have you break it down in all 5 ways. You know, do it by the object, intention, circumstance. Tell me, how would a deontologist do it, a proportionalist, a consequentialist, and a situational ethicist, okay? Any questions on this stuff?